You walk out to the shed, and there it is, the axe head you left out in the rain, the hatchet that came back from a camping trip damp, the handsaw with the orange crust creeping up the blade, the shovel by the back wall, the cast iron skillet on the high shelf you forgot to oil, the truck frame, the brake lines, the wheelbarrow, the gate hinge. Rust. The slow eating of your good iron tools by the air itself, one season at a time, until what was a sharp, clean tool your father gave you is a flaking ruin you have to throw away or pay a man to fix. Most folks fight rust the way the hardware store wants them to. A bottle of rust converter, $15, $20, $30 a small jar, a spray can that lasts a few months and you buy again, a new tool to replace the one you let go. Year after year, paying and paying, watching your good iron slowly turn to powder. Now I want you to sit with this. There is a fine powder you can buy for about $3 mixed in a cup of water in your kitchen that does something almost no one believes the first time they see it. You brush it on the rust, and the rust itself turns into a hard, dark blue-black coating that protects the metal underneath. The rust does not just stop. The rust becomes the protection. The disease becomes the cure. That is not me being poetic. That is the chemistry written down in the books since 1813. My name is Elias Yoda. I am Amish, and I farm in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. I am going to be honest with you right at the start, the way I always am, and especially today because the title of this video is bold, and you deserve to know what holds up plain and what holds up with a fair word of explanation. Folks will tell you this makes iron rust-proof forever. That is the bold claim. The truth, which I am going to tell you straight, is more useful. It stops your rust in its tracks, turns it into a protective coating, and gives you metal that needs a small touch-up perhaps once a year instead of new rust eating it down to nothing every season. That is what they mean by forever, a thin coat once a year instead of throwing the tool out in a few years. Honest is more useful than impressive, and once you see it work in your own hands, you will not go back. Before I go further, for the folks who want all of this, every method I have shown on this channel and the ones I have not gotten to yet, all in one place, I have put it together in a book at my website, eliasyoder.com. I will not push it again in the video. If you want it, it is there. Now let me show you the powder. Stay with me. Let me first tell you what is really happening, because once you see the simple chemistry of it, the rest of the video makes plain sense. Rust, that orange flaky stuff eating your iron, is what happens when iron meets water and air and slowly turns to iron oxide. The metal itself loses its tight, hard form and becomes a soft, crumbly compound that just keeps spreading. Once it starts, it does not stop on its own. Rust feeds rust. The orange creeps wider and deeper, year after year, until the tool gives way. Now there is a thing in nature called tannin. Sometimes folks call it tannic acid. It is what makes a cup of strong black tea taste dry on your tongue, and what makes a red wine pull at your cheeks, and what makes an oak gall and an oak leaf and a chestnut hull bitter. It is what the old leather tanners used in their oak bark vats to turn animal hide into shoe leather. That is where the word tanning comes from. It is everywhere in the forest and the pantry, in oak bark and tea leaves and grape skins and pomegranate rinds. And here is the small marvel of it. When tannin meets rust, the two of them grab onto each other in a chemical handshake, and the orange flaky rust converts into a brand new compound called ferric tannate, a dark blue-black coating bonded tight to the metal underneath, hard, stable, and most importantly, not eating the iron the way rust was. The very rust that was destroying your tool becomes the seal that protects it. This is real, well-documented chemistry. A French chemist named Henri Braconnot wrote it up plain as day back in 1813. The Canadian Conservation Institute, the folks who restore iron artifacts in museums, things they intend to keep for hundreds of years, they publish the same exact procedure as their standard method. The museums use it. The military has tested it. The peer-reviewed papers spell it out. This is not folk magic. It is honest chemistry sitting in the books for over 200 years. And the same compound the museum man uses to protect a 1,000-year-old Iron Age sword for the next century is what you are about to mix in a plastic cup for $3. The same dark blue-black on antique ironwork that has lasted 300 years on someone's porch, that is ferric tannate. The same near-black ink in a medieval handwritten Bible that has held its color for 800 years, that is iron and tannin, the same chemistry. Tannin and iron have been protecting each other longer than anyone alive can remember. Most folks have just never been told the name for it. Now I owe you the honest scope of what this works on, before you go and try it on the wrong thing and feel like I lied to you. Because while folks will tell you this works on any metal, the plain truth is different and more useful. This works on iron and steel. That is what rusts orange, and tannic acid only does its handshake with iron. So your axes, your knives, your hatchets, your hand tools, your cast iron pans, your truck frame, your trailer, your wheelbarrow, your wood stove door, your gate hinges, your toolbox, your nails and bolts, your old farm machinery, your wood-burning stove parts, any honest old iron. All of these are made of iron or steel, and the powder does its work on all of them. It does not do this on aluminum or brass or copper or zinc or stainless steel or anything galvanized. Those metals corrode differently. They do not make orange rust, and the tannin has nothing to grab onto. Use the powder on aluminum, and you will get nothing for your trouble. So when you reach for this, reach for it for honest iron and steel. That is most of the rusting things in your shed and your barn and your house. Almost everything that rusts that orange color. But know what it works on and use it for that. That is honest. The bold title says any metal. The honest farmer who is teaching you says iron and steel, which is most of what rusts and which is most of what you have. Now let me show you what to buy and how to mix it, because the parts are simple and cheap, and you can have everything you need with one online order or one trip to the hardware store. Tannic acid powder, food grade. This is the main ingredient. You search for that exact phrase online and you will find it in many places. Small bags, 100 grams or so, for $3 to $5. That little bag treats roughly 40 feet of rusted metal, which is most of a small farm's tools, an entire truck frame, or all the ironwork around a house. One bag lasts most folks years. A small jar of phosphoric acid rust remover. The hardware store calls it navel jelly, and it is $2 or $3. This is the helper. Tannic acid alone does the main job, but adding a little phosphoric acid makes the conversion faster and deeper, and turns any leftover rust into a second protective compound called iron phosphate. The conservation studies and the military tests both confirm. Together, they work much better than alone. Get both. Distilled water, not tap water. A gallon at the grocery store is $1. The reason? Tap water has minerals and sometimes chloride in it, and chloride is the very thing that makes iron rust worse. You do not want to fight the chemistry with the water. Distilled is clean and lets the powder do its work. A foam brush or an old cotton rag for applying. A few cents. Steel wool or a stiff wire brush to prep the metal first. Rubber gloves and eye protection, and I will say a word here because phosphoric acid in the navel jelly is a real acid and will sting your skin and your eyes if you are careless. Wear the gloves, wear safety glasses, work in a ventilated spot. This is not lye, but it is not water either. Treat it with respect. That is the whole shopping list. $5, $6 altogether for enough to treat every piece of rusted iron you own and have powder left over. Now here is how you mix it, plain and simple. Take a clean cup or a small plastic container. Pour in about 100 milliliters, that is just a little under half a cup, of warm distilled water. Stir in 4 grams of tannic acid powder, which is about a level teaspoon. Stir until it dissolves. The water will turn the color of strong black tea, dark brownish, the same color as the bark it came from. That is normal. That is the tannin. Then stir in about a teaspoon of navel jelly, the phosphoric acid. The mix may darken further or stay about the same. Either way is fine. That is your formula. 3% tannic, a touch of phosphoric, distilled water. It is what the museum books call for and what the conservation folks have used for over 200 years. Now to use it. First, prep the metal. Take your stiff wire brush or your steel wool and knock off any loose, flaking rust, the orange bits that come off in your hand. Do not sand it down to bare metal. That is the mistake most folks make. The tannin needs rust to react with. Without rust, it has nothing to grab. So remove only what is loose enough to fall away and leave the firm rust where it sits. The firm rust is what becomes the protection. Brush the solution evenly over the rusted surface. A foam brush, an old rag, even a clean paintbrush works. Cover every rusted spot. Now watch. Within 10 or 15 minutes, sometimes a little longer, the color begins to shift right in front of you. The orange becomes a darker brown. The darker brown becomes gray. The gray becomes a deep blue-black. That is the ferric tannate forming. That is the chemistry working in real time where you can see it happen. The first time you see it, you will not believe it. Folks who watch it the first time tell me the same thing, that there is something genuinely satisfying about watching the rust become the protection. Let it dry completely. 2 to 4 hours, depending on how warm and dry the day is. The surface will turn that final dark blue-black, dry to the touch, hard. Then apply a second coat. This is important. The conservation experts are plain about it. Multiple thin coats work much better than one thick coat. One thick coat can flake. 2 thin coats, fully dry between, build a denser, more bonded layer. Brush on the second coat, let it dry another few hours. Finally, top it off. For tools, axes, knives, anything you handle a lot, rub on a light coat of boiled linseed oil or melted beeswax. For a vehicle frame or a truck undercarriage, a rubberized undercoating spray over top. For a cast iron skillet, you simply re-season it in a 350-degree oven with a thin coat of oil, the same way you would season any cast iron. The top coat is the final weather barrier. The ferric tannate stops the rust, and the linseed oil or beeswax keeps water off the surface. That is the whole procedure. 45 minutes of work over an afternoon, $3 of powder, and a tool that was eating itself is now sealed and protected. Now I owe you the honest words about how long this lasts and what its real limits are, because this is where the title's word, forever, deserves a fair explanation. For most outdoor and tool use in normal weather, the coating holds for a long time, years for many tools. The blue-black layer is hard and bonded and does not just wash off. The cast iron pan stays seasoned and dark. The axe head holds its finish. The wheelbarrow does not start eating itself again. For tools that get heavy use or live outdoors year-round, you do a small touch-up about once a season. 20 minutes, the same brush and coat procedure on whatever spots have started to dull or wear. Once a year, 20 minutes from the same bag of powder you bought a decade ago. Where it does have its honest limits, in very harsh conditions, sea air heavy with salt, or roads heavily salted in winter, the coating will degrade faster, and you may need to redo it more often than once a year. Salt is the enemy of every kind of metal protection, not just this one. The same truck frame in dry Pennsylvania weather and the same frame in a coastal seaside town will not last the same length of time on any treatment. That is not a flaw of the tannin, that is the nature of salt. And honest scientific word. There are some studies that say tannic acid alone, used on heavily contaminated rust without the phosphoric helper, does not bond as tightly as folks once thought. That is why the combination, tannic plus phosphoric, the way the museum books and the military tests do it, is what I have showed you. The two of them together, applied to clean and well-prepped rust, are far more reliable than either one alone. Honest is more useful than impressive. The formula I gave you is the one that is held up under the closest scientific looking at. So when I say rust-proof forever, what that really means in plain farmer English is stops the rust right now, turns it into protection, and with a small once-a-year touch-up, keeps your iron in good order for as long as you own it. That is far closer to forever than a spray can that lasts 3 months. And it does cost about $3. Now I want to take a moment because this is the part that matters. Think about what you just learned. A powder, $3 a bag, that performs the same job as a $15 jar of branded rust converter sitting on the hardware store shelf. Pick up that jar on your next trip in. Read the back of it. Look at the ingredient list. You will see the same words, tannic acid and sometimes phosphoric acid. The same chemistry, in a smaller container, with a brand name on it, 10 or 15 times the price. How can that be? The honest answer is the same one I always come back to on this channel. There is no money in selling a man a $3 bag of powder that lasts him years and treats his whole farm. There is good money in selling him a $15 bottle of rust converter every spring and every fall and again next year. The hardware store does not have a sign on the aisle saying, "Here is the same thing for less than a quarter of the price." The branded company does not run a commercial telling you to look for the raw ingredient. So the powder sits on a different shelf, in a plain bag with a long name on it, and most folks walk right past it because no one ever told them what it does. That is not a conspiracy. There is no villain in this. It is simpler. A system that makes its money on you not knowing has no reason to teach you. So the old knowledge of the blacksmiths and the leather tanners and the museum men and the simple country chemists has quietly stopped being passed down, and the hardware aisle has taken over. My grandfather would not have called this an Amish secret. He would have called it what it is, plain chemistry that good farmers and good craftsmen used to know. The bag has been on the shelf the whole time. Most folks have just never been told to ask for it. You are being told now. So here is what I want you to do. This week, order a small bag of food-grade tannic acid online, $3 to $5. Pick up a jar of navel jelly at the hardware store, $2 or $3. Grab a gallon of distilled water at the grocery, $1. Find the rustiest, honest piece of iron or steel you have got, an axe head, a hatchet, a cast iron skillet, an old shovel, a handsaw, a toolbox, a gate hinge. Put on your gloves and your safety glasses. Mix the formula. Knock off the loose flakes with steel wool. Brush the dark tea-colored solution onto the rust and watch it happen. See the orange turn to brown, the brown turn to gray, the gray turn to deep blue-black while you stand there. The first time you see it, you will understand why the museum folks use this same chemistry on the iron artifacts they are trying to save for the next 1,000 years. And the same powder in your hands will save your good iron for the rest of your life with one small touch-up a year. Tell me in the comments below, what is the rustiest tool you have been meaning to bring back? The axe, the saw, the cast iron pan, the truck frame, the wheelbarrow? And once you have tried it, come back and tell me what changed when you watched the rust turn dark right under your brush, because the first time you see it is something most folks remember. I read every single one. Next time, since we have been talking about saving the iron and the steel you already own, I'm going to show you the old way my people sharpen and re-edge a dull axe, a dull knife, a dull pair of shears, so a tool you thought was finished comes back to better than new with nothing more than a stone, a strop, and 10 minutes of your time. It is the natural next step after today. Don't throw the rusty one away. Bring it back. The powder is on the shelf, and the chemistry has been waiting for you the whole time.